When you invest with Fidelity Go, it does all the work for you. So while Fidelity Go monitors the markets, rebalances your portfolio, and tracks your progress to keep your investments aligned with your goal, you can invest your time however you want, all while paying no advisory fees under $25K. Invest your money, not your time, with Fidelity Go. Get started at fidelity.com/go. Advisory services offered by Strategic Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Brokerage services provided by Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE and SIPC.
Introducing Home Care Plus, a new subscription service from Lowe's that helps make life easier by giving members a hand with home maintenance. Let Lowe's tackle the tasks you keep meaning to do, like electric dryer vent cleaning, replacing hard-to-reach light bulbs, and more. Subscribe to Home Care Plus for just $99 a year and consider your to-do list done. Members get more at Lowe's. Available in select zip codes only. Cancel anytime. Non-refundable fee. Product purchase required. Terms and service restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in to maybe the best episode of the year on the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew Mock It Like It's Hot Betz.
Time to mock, baby. Everybody knows something. Nobody knows anything. And that's the NFL draft this year, and I can't wait to talk about it. That's quite a bold statement, Kyle. I mean, we do a lot of shows every year.
I love this show.
And it's only our second one of the year, and you're like, this is one of, if not the best. I'm with you, though. I do love our win totals episode. Always a good one every year. And this one is super fun. I feel like this year, it's going to be weird. Like, whatever you think the top 15 is going to look like, we've mentioned this before. Like, obviously, we're going to debate Bailey or Reese at 2. Nobody knows what the Cardinals are doing. Like, once you get there, like, things kind of fall off the rails.
They don't know what they're doing.
No, certainly not. Look at their team. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm excited to talk about kind of how this goes. And I was thinking about this when I was doing my mock, which we'll unveil together here. Of like in Showdown, we talk about this in DFS, where it's like your lineup should tell a story. Your mock draft has such an then this will happen effect, just like we talk about with game flow and everything like that in DFS. So I was just kind of thinking about like stacking up bets and kind of correlating them together and all that sort of stuff. So I'll talk about some of that today on the show. Maybe we'll get some more of that in Discord. But yeah, man, I'm excited. This should be a lot of fun.
It's a great show because there is a part of the prospect process that we do on the Dynasty podcast. If you haven't listened to all of those, make sure you jump into that, where we're talking about these players for fantasy. We're talking about them and what correlates or what translates from college to the pros. This part of the analysis is part speculation. I mean, that's just anybody out there. And then we do have hard data of we know this about this team and what they've done. We know this about the player and who they met with. And that part of the process and the data is something that we've added over the last year or two. And it's fun. My wife actually asked me like yesterday, she's like, man, you were really working hard yesterday. I mean, it's off season. The ballers are golfing. And I'm like, my eyes are crossed right now from looking at all this top 30 visit private workout, who met with who at the combine data. And yesterday was the very last day of it. So I feel like I had to squeeze in all the stuff. And I still feel like there's just so many variables. So I just want to say this. You brought it up. If then this could happen. That's what the draft is. So mock drafts are going to have a ton of data that are wrong, but they also do give us certain probabilities. So that's what we're working from is historically this is what's happened. And therefore I'm going to make my best educated guess. Not necessarily like always this fits this team's need.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And along the same lines too, like I think back to last year's draft, and at the time, there was a consensus that formed that was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense, and then all of a sudden, like one or two teams does something different, and then the other teams adjust in the draft, and we're like, we didn't think this guy was going to be here. We didn't really spend a lot of time with him, but like he's definitely the highest on our board. Let's just snag him. So you'll see, I think you'll see a lot of that this year because of the fact that it is not rich with quarterback talent, obviously. We're only going to see one tight end in the first round. Like the running back class is weak. And there's not a lot of highly coveted premium position players. And so if a team says, look, I just value this guy more than I would in other years, like you might see a safety go earlier than usual,
right,
or something like that. So I'm excited. I think there's going to be a lot of curveballs on draft night, which always makes for a lot of fun from a viewing standpoint, which the NFL loves this to be entertaining. So I think from a viewing standpoint, it'll be a lot of fun. I think for betting, it'll be fun because there are some long shot values that I think are on the board right now. And I always hesitate when there's consensus about a week out or even a week plus out. We'll talk about this when we get to the Browns. I don't know if you saw recently, like all the big time kind of mock draft guys are mocking Cleveland to move back and Dallas to move up. And it's like, man, if that is what everybody thinks more than a week out, I'm skeptical. Could it happen? Of course. I mean, Jerry loves to be aggressive and all those sort of things. But yeah, I'm just skeptical of the consensus. Like I said, I think this year more than ever, there will be some wow moments in the top 10.
Yeah, so we will go through our mock drafts. Betz and I have not shared them with each other, so we'll reveal them on the podcast. And the goal is, as we go through each pick, we're not just saying, here's what we think it is. We're also stating, here's what we think maybe a really good bet is or good value. I mean, that's what the people are here.
Kyle brings the value every time.
Dude,
Do they win? No, but the value.
Dude, talk about that Mendoza value right now, you know?
I mean, there's still value on that number, Kyle. That's bettable.
It's just funny because like I could say this is what I think the team should do with their needs. Here's what I think is more probable, and then here's what I think is a bet that someone should take at plus 700. That's a long shot.
Yeah.
But if you hit that, that's what we really care about. I was going through the data. You were mentioning teams that like, man, I just didn't see this coming. When the Buccaneers drafted Egbuka last year. Egbuka,
yeah, that's a perfect example.
At 19th, or a couple years before that, JSN at 20th. Those two wide receivers did not meet with those teams at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure just like in going through the process that like they had them highly rated on their board and they did not assume that those players would be there at all, especially JSN. Like JSN was one of those guys that like met with tons of teams. I think everyone assumed he was the first wide receiver off the board at 20th and they're like, well, they have Lockett and Metcalf. So they don't really need him, so nobody would have mocked him there. And now you look at it, you're like, oh, well, this was the offensive player of the year, and they just won the Super Bowl. In hindsight, they took the best player available, and I just love the team-building aspect of how the draft works. We will debate about that if, like, man, is this good for the team, bad for the team? So we'll talk about all that. We will have some articles on the website. We'll post some of these. You'll post some betting mock draft stuff. We do have our draft props, which are available that Betz has been firing away. Him and I go back and forth. We have that. And then I will have an article that is turning into a mini novel of the 2026 NFL prospect visits, diving into all of the data and lots of rabbit trails there, Betz.
I'm going to need you to get that wrapped up as soon as you can, Kyle, because I'm going to rely on that when I do my final mock for the Huddle Report. So I'm going to need you to dial it in here, brother, because I'm leaning on you.
Yeah, well, what's funny is I started writing it out and I went through a bunch of scenarios for the quarterbacks. I'm like, the quarterbacks aren't even like that valuable to know. Like there's very few visits to go off of. It really doesn't matter. I do have a bunch of Ty Simpson stuff in there about historically, here's what's happened. What should they do? What could they do? Here's all the different teams that he's met with. So all that will be on the fantasyfootballers.com if you want some more data. But I got to hit this drop now.
Maka-laka ding dong.
Because I'm going to keep hitting it throughout the show. It's kind of like your wake-up call.
I love
If you are just droning on about the Jets, or if you're like, man, let's talk about the Eagles, I'm going to be like, dude, come on.
Maka-laka ding dong.
So, hopefully you're prepared. Let's get into it.
The Fantasy Footballers Mock Draft.
So Betzel and I will be going through the first half or so of the NFL draft. To be honest, like once we get past the Jets at pick 16, there's not as many offensive players to work with. There's some wide receivers, but I feel like we're going to see a bunch of like edge guys, a bunch of like offensive linemen. So in terms of like entertainment value, it might not be as exciting. Kind of talk to the people how we do this process. We don't put trades in our mock drafts because we found historically they happen way less frequently and it's really hard to predict. So you mentioned like the Browns And you mentioned the Cowboys, the Chiefs are another team. It's like, oh, they could trade up. It's like, it's hard for me to put that in a mock. And then I look back later at even the best of the best, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think in this class specifically, it's hard to mock trades because oftentimes there's a discussion in the top 5. It's like, if you want a quarterback, you got to go get him. There's no quarterbacks to go get, so maybe somebody falls in love with Carnell Tate and they want to move up a couple spots to grab him, or a corner or something. Like, I could see it. But the general consensus from a lot of the kind of NFL draft analysts out there is most teams are saying we'd like to move back. Well, that's great, but the problem is you need somebody to dance with, right? You got to have somebody to come up as well. So it could happen. I just don't think that it'll happen a ton in this draft, just because there's not a lot of highly coveted players at premium positions, which, talking out loud, we need to look after we record. I'm making a note for all the listeners and myself. Usually there's a market up somewhere about like number of trades in the first round. I haven't seen that yet, but historically the under on that has been a good look. So just bookmarking that, for after the show to look at. But yeah, the way we do this, like, we go pick by pick through the top 16 or so. From a process standpoint, I use a lot of like consensus big boards. I use a lot of top 30 visits that you have gathered for us, Kyle, and just team needs to some degree, but also kind of looking at like GM tendencies. Like, do certain GMs and coaching staffs prioritize athletic testing, traits, stuff like that? Do some GMs and other staffs value more like Senior Bowl guys or experienced players, stuff like that? So there's a lot that goes into it. At the end of the day, like you said, these are educated guesses. We're hoping we're right on a couple. and I think talking through specifically for this show for betting, like, if you feel super strongly about a certain take, great, you can bet on it. Or just saying, like, I feel shaky about this. I could see X, Y, and Z happening in this spot, and I think these numbers are off as a result. So that's kind of my process through the whole thing. But like I said, let's jump in. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then there's some teams that just are vibes based. They're just like, man, let's just feel it out in the draft. Let's just see what's going on year to year. And then there's other teams that don't have picks. They just say, hey, let's light not just one first round pick on fire. Let's light 2. It's like,
when do the Falcons pick? Do they have a second?
Yeah, they have a second round, man.
Okay,
it's going to be huge. it's going to be great. Yeah, they said it couldn't be done to light 2 first round picks on fire, and they did it. They totally did it.
What a team!
I know. Okay, we're gonna start off at number 1, Raiders. Fernando Mendoza. It's minus 20,000. You should have bet this 3 months ago.
Yeah, nothing to talk about.
Yeah. He's only met with the Raiders. That's all you need to know. All right, let's go to the Jets at 2, because right now it is a coin flip for this team that also has a pick later on at 16. But in the betting markets, it is a coin flip between David Bailey at minus 115 and Arvell Reese at minus 115 as well. Before you review your pick, like, the story of this selection has been who have the Jets met with, and then recently, as of yesterday, as of this recording, they canceled their meeting with David Bailey, who they did meet with at the Combine. The Jets are also a team that have kind of stated publicly, like, the reason we do our visits is to check medicals. And in all my studies with top 30 visits, we have to understand it's not the same for each team. Like, the Rams don't give 2 farts about the top 30 visits. There are other teams that have always been strictly like, we do this and we stick to it. And the Jets, for the quarterback position, hilariously, have always done it that way. Whenever the Jets have picked a quarterback, which, sorry, Jets fans, it's been a lot of quarterbacks you've drafted over the last decade, you've gone that route. They're not picking a quarterback here. And so how are you taking this information about Bailey, them canceling a visit? It doesn't mean they don't want him. It probably means they already know what they know. And these are the only 2 guys we're really considering.
Yeah, I mean, everybody agrees it's going to be one of these 2, David Bailey or Arvell Reese. I don't put a lot of stock into the canceled visit. Like you said, I think it just tells us they know who they're taking, and that's where it ends. I don't think anybody actually knows. I think everybody inside the Jets building knows, but you have national reporters such as like Schrager, DJ, guys like that are saying, like, we think it's Bailey, we lean Bailey. And then you have a lot of the local beat reporters that are saying, we think it's Reese, which tells you no one knows. So we took David Bailey in the betting market after our conversation last week of saying, look, I don't think Arvell Reese is like the slam dunk the way the betting market suggests. Now it has moved the other direction. I don't know if you can still find plus money on Arvell Reese. If you can, I personally would hedge it, just because if you're able to get plus money on both sides, guarantee a profit at the second pick, I would do that. The way things stand right now, and I've heard some people talk about this with the Jets, it's like Aaron Glenn has so much pressure to win. It was a terrible first season. Like, they're not going to let him fart around for 3 years and then be stuck holding the bag again, which the Jets have done so many years. In my opinion, I think Aaron Glenn is not the guy, no matter what. Now, they can't publicly say that, or they can't talk about that in the building.
I would just think if somebody said that about me, I would just cry inside about anything. Like, man, Kyle,
he's not the guy.
He's not that guy.
He can be a DC, he's just not the guy. But my thinking here is like, people have talked about, look, if Aaron Glenn wants to show some promise this year with the Jets and keep his job for another year, like, they should take the proven guy in David Bailey. In my opinion, you should be drafting for the team, not for Aaron Glenn's job. And I think Arvell Reese is the most likely guy to have this huge ceiling in the NFL. Of course, weird stuff happens. Nobody can predict a career, but like, he's the higher ceiling player, in my opinion. You have a lot of people ranking Arvell Reese higher on big boards. So I think if I had to pick right now today, I would put Arvell Reese. For this mock, I put David Bailey because of just the general consensus around it. Like, hey, we're hearing this. It could be Bailey. I wouldn't be shocked either way. But right now, you're thinking about like my future final mock for next week before NFL draft. I probably, as of today, lean Arvell Reese.
Okay, so I think Arvell Reese is the better player if I were the GM.
Yes.
I have David Bailey in my mock as well.
Okay.
So the not meeting with him doesn't really scare me off at all. It is something that we've seen historically. I have this number in front of me, that among top 5 NFL draft picks over the last decade, 87% of them, that's a crazy majority, had a known top 30 visit or a private workout. So not talking about like they saw him at the combine or, whatever, they had lunch. This is a very specific visit. However, in this instance, I know that they met with him at the combine, and the Jets are a team that historically has just said, hey, this is about medicals, and he has no medical issues, so it doesn't really matter. Production-wise, David Bailey was better this past year.
Yep.
So right now, that's where I lean. So if you're betting this today, based on what we did, you're saying, I'm just going to hedge with Arvell Reese?
If you can get plus money, I would. I don't know if that's still out there in the market anywhere, but if you can get plus money, which we took on David Bailey last week at plus 340, and you can get anything plus 110, plus 115 or better on Reese, I would just do it and lock in profit.
All right, one more thing I want to add about David Bailey is the only other piece of information I have is that I know he wasn't with the top golf crew with Washington.
The Jets? Oh, I was like, the Jets did top golf too?
No, let me throw this out there. So Washington has historically done this thing. They did it back with Jaden Daniels, and it's kind of a fun, different structure that the way this team does. They get all the best players.
All the boys.
Just together for a good night, and they really want to see like who shines through. So like Jaden Daniels was like cool, calm, collected, had everybody together. Everybody else was probably drinking too much, but no, that's speculation. But David Bailey was not part of this crew where everybody else basically in the top 10 was at that visit. So is that Washington saying, hey, we're not considering him, or we don't think that he's even going to be on the board at all? That's just another point to at least consider, that like they view David Bailey as like potentially not there. The Jets don't have any other visits, so other than Reese and their canceled one with Bailey and then a bunch of quarterbacks.
Yeah. It's going to be an edge rusher here, and we'll talk about what they're going to do at 16 later on.
All right, Cardinals are up next. The betting favorite is Arvell Reese at minus 150. Is it kind of one of those things where you just kind of flip-flop who the guy is here, or do we get some late run from our boy Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle, who I can pronounce his name perfectly this week?
Maui Noah. Sorry, Francis, we screwed it up last week. Maui Noah, Kyle.
Dang it.
You know what? When he's in the NFL for 6 years, we'll finally get it down. Maui Noah. Yes, there was a lot of mocks with him going third, and we kept being like, he didn't meet with his team. And as we talked about last week, it's so rare for an offensive tackle in the top 10 to go to a team without a top 30 visit. Now that has been reported. So I see a world where it is Francis Maui Noah with this. That said, if you guys missed it last week, I believe it was, some news came out that he had to go back for a medical recheck due to a back injury. Reportedly, everything checked out fine for now. He played a full season last year. It's not like this is a brand new thing, but there were some rumblings like, could this be an issue that maybe is addressed down the line. It's possible. We don't know what teams value that or don't. I just think there's a possibility that Maui Noah could slide a little further than the consensus thinks if that medical stuff is of any substance, which I don't know if it is. All that to say, I have Arvel Reese here. My lean right now is that they will take basically whoever the Jets don't. They'll just take the other edge rusher. So right now I've got a Bailey, then Reese. If it goes Reese, then Bailey, I think that makes sense. If you miss anything on the second pick for plus money to guarantee a profit, you could also, in my opinion, just bet David Bailey third overall at plus odds and then get kind of guaranteed profit, assuming that happens, which maybe the Cardinals trade back and something weird happens here. But presumably you would think if somebody trades up to third, they're doing it for one of these edge rushers. So I'm still comfortable with that angle.
Right. And if you get those, there's certain markets where it's like the top 5 drafted order and they're not team specific, you need to be very clear. It's like, that's basically what you're looking for. Mendoza, whatever order of Reese and Bailey, and then we go on from 4 and 5. The Cardinals have met with Reese, Bailey, Jeremiah Love, and Maui Noah. And that was like what? Like at the very, very end that got reported?
That was reported on Wednesday this past week.
Yeah, so those are kind of the ones that we're considering. I think if I was the GM, Monty Ossenfort, I would trade down. But, there's just so many different things. Maui Noah would be a right tackle for them because they have Paris Johnson. So it's just like, that's just expensive at third overall to take a right tackle. All right, let's go to the Titans at 4. Jeremiah Love is the betting favorite at plus 100, even money. I feel like I could go in a bunch of different directions here. But man, am I just going to look like a fish just taking chalky chalk?
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, we're scared. We're scared.
Yeah, look, this feels very similar to last year with Genty. If you guys recall the conversation, there was like weeks of being like, Genty's the Raiders, man. Like it's the writing's on the wall. And then we got cute, or the public kind of got cute, and it's like, well, maybe the Jags, maybe this, maybe that. And it's like, oh, it was the most obvious answer the whole time. Every big board you look at across the league, from whatever source you use, Jeremiah Love is a top 5, if not top 3 player in this class. And I don't think he's making it to Washington at 7. So in my opinion, he is going to go in the top 5. Charles McDonald works with Yahoo. They did like this little segment on one of his shows yesterday. It was like buy or sell. He's a top 5 pick, and he said, I'm buying because if he doesn't go to the Titans, I think the Giants will snag him. So I think there's a very good chance he is a top 5 selection in this class. You can argue the running back value versus whatever else in terms of this class, but the bottom line is he's just, I think, the best player available at this point when you look at big boards across the industry. So there was a ton of buzz on Love to the Titans coming out of the combine. Then there was some public speculation of like, maybe he falls to 7. I think we're back to where we started with this, and it's just the most obvious answer, and it's Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, this regime also is not part of the Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears group, so you don't have to connect them together. Is there any value? So right now he's at even money to go 4th overall. To go 5th overall, it's plus 550. Any interest in a sprinkle?
The only thing that would make that possible, I think, is if the Titans went off the board, and I've seen some correlations with Fred Warner, with San Francisco, Robert Saleh, to Sonny Styles. If they kind of threw us a curveball and took Styles at 4, then I think the Giants would be in play at 5 for Jeremiah Love. But I don't know that I'm going to bet that personally.
Yeah, the only scenarios where I see that is there's a trade-up candidate, the Cardinals take Maui Noah. There's just a couple different, things there where it's like, oh, wow, Bailey's available, or Reese is somehow available at 4, and they take them there, or Sonny Styles. So that's not what I have. It feels like a square bet at 4. It also feels like a square move to take a running back at 4. But whatever, man. If you want to build your team that way and take a first-round running back in the top 10, it's cool. You won't win that way. I've been there. Okay, let's go to the Giants. And I have a bit of we both have picks here that are different than the consensus right now. Sonny Styles, the linebacker combine extraordinaire out of Ohio State, is the betting favorite, and I use favorite loosely. It's at plus 175. I have Caleb Downs, the safety, and this is me actually being honest and probably doing a little bit more projecting here of what worked for John Harbaugh in Baltimore and him looking over and saying, hey, Caleb Downs, he reminds me of Kyle Hamilton. Let's just take him there. And I get that the positional, you don't take a safety at 5 usually. You don't take him in the top 10. It's like Eric Berry and a bunch of other guys. It just doesn't happen. But Caleb Downs is also like one of the high character guys that every single, interviewer said, like, this is the dude. When he walks in, everybody loves him. So that's where I have the Giants take him at 5. I don't know if I'd take a safety there, but I don't have Sonny Styles here.
What I think is interesting is everybody's kind of talking about this class as like, would you take a running back at 4? It's like, would you take a linebacker at 4? Would you take a linebacker at 5? Of course not. Would you take a safety at 5? No, of course not. But that's this draft, right? So I don't think this is crazy. I will say the thing on Downs that was interesting is I had projected him to maybe be like a, I don't know, Dallas pick or something like that in that range. And when Schrager put out his first mock, he said that the feedback he got from around the league was like, there's no way Caleb Downs is going to be available at 12. So if you think that's right, then presumably we should slot him in somewhere in the top 10. So I agree with you on that take. That makes a lot of sense. The thing with the Giants, it's interesting is they've talked a lot about, or Harbaugh's talked a lot about stopping the run and the trenches. And when you hear the stop the run, it makes sense with Sonny Styles. You mentioned the parallels with like, he's always had like kind of a star safety. He's also always had a star linebacker. So I think Sonny Styles does make sense here. I went with just a curveball to see what would happen to the rest of the top 10 if I made this pick. So I have Spencer Fano going here. He talked about the trenches, like I said, and I know they just re-signed Jermaine Illuminor. Maybe they can play him at guard and figure it out from there. But I think Fano is like an interesting sprinkle. I see 8-1 on Caesars to be the 5th pick, only because if they do go offensive line here and they do want to protect Jackson Dart, there's a path where I think that's a possibility. But again, I did this more as like an exercise to see how this unfolds from the rest of the top 10. From what I could find, Kyle, maybe you can correct this for me. I saw they did meet with him. I don't think that they have met with Maui Noah. So that's why I went with Fano over Maui Noah. And look, if the Maui Noah back stuff is, I don't want to say real, but like a team might say, look, we'll take a coin flip here. We'll use them on the other one. I think Fano for first offensive lineman drafted, there might be some value on that as well.
Yeah, he's definitely the most versatile of the group. Like, and I actually have him, spoiler alert, as the first offensive lineman taken. It'll be later on in this draft. So I do agree with you. Like, I think there's value in figuring out the markets for Fano. The Giants are weird, man, because like their visits of the top 10 have been Reese, who we don't think will be there, Love, who we just drafted the Titans, Carnell Tate, and Mansour Delane, so the cornerback out of LSU. So it's like there's this group that we're trying to figure out where do they fit in of like Sonny Styles and Ruben Bain, Caleb Downs, defensive guys that we're kind of like looking at this team and saying like, I feel like they can go there. I mean, Tate, could they go Tate? Like that would be a really, really cool team. Don't forget, they added your boy Darnell Mooney this offseason. I was looking at their depth chart today. I was like, oh man.
Dude, they love a good field stretcher who's not that productive.
Well, they still have Darius Slayton.
That's what I mean.
They have to fight it out to figure out who wants to have that role. But I think the Giants are a little bit of a wild card. There has been a consensus about Sonny Styles fitting what he wants to do, and I kind of did that with Downs. So Downs at plus 330 is fine. Fano on DK is at plus 1800.
Oh wow, that's a huge difference across the market.
Yeah.
That's why you have to line shop on this stuff. Like there's no consensus when it comes to the odds on this. Like, if you're new to sport or to betting for the NFL draft, like in prop season, it's very rare to find like a 68.5 rushing yards and then the other book's at like 58.5. That just doesn't happen. In this, they don't know how to price it. So generally speaking, you can find some off market numbers if you shop around. So make sure you're doing that if you're looking at this stuff.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Millions of finds, each with a story. eBay. Things people love. Having the right people in your corner for life's biggest milestones makes all the difference. Like a friend who's there when you're house hunting or checking out a new ride, State Farm is there too, helping you choose the coverage you need. With a State Farm agent, you know someone is there to help you along the way. And with so many coverage options, it's nice knowing you have help choosing a plan that fits your needs, so you can continue celebrating all of life's milestones. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
I realized that you and I were just, chatting away, just doing our thing.
Makalaka ding dong.
And I never took a break for the good old. I know there's people out there that don't care, and then there's corporate that definitely cares.
You're getting a memo.
They're like, you talked about the top 5 without hitting that button? Are you kidding me? All right, let's go to 6. It's the Browns. They also have pick 24. We talked about it last week that it's either you pick a wide receiver here, an offensive lineman later, or vice versa. Carnell Tate is the betting favorite at plus 175. You could go, if you wanted to, Spencer Fano at only plus 475. So it's very different than him going to the Giants. Very different market. I have Tate, and that also still feels like a square play.
I also have Carnell Tate. Do you have your top 30 stuff pulled up right now?
Oh, do I ever?
Well, I was looking at, I'll let you speak to it here in a minute. I was looking at the offensive linemen that they've met with as far as the tackles, and it seems like the vast majority of the quality of tackle, is how I put it, based off big board rankings, are the guys that are going to be available maybe at 18 to 25-ish. Not that they haven't met with a couple of these top guys, but the vast majority of those offensive line visits are players that you would probably consider a reach at 6. So that's why I went with Carnell Tate. Is like, I think their signal maybe is saying, maybe you would take the offensive lineman later. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's just my speculation based off their top 30 stuff, but I'm with you. I have Carnell Tate here. They just need a guy. They need a guy at pass catcher. They need a legit alpha wide receiver 1 type of player. And if you look at Carnell Tate's over-under, it's like minus 250 or something for the under 7.5. So this just feels like a sweet spot for Carnell Tate.
Yeah, one of the things that we look at in the process of the top 30 visits is like, where would these fit in on the board? And we use Mock Draft Database as kind of a proxy, just say approximately where would this player go? And we've found over the years it's actually pretty good. Like, it's not perfect. There's some mocks that are way off, but at the end of the day, at least gives us a range to work with, a starting place to say like, hey, this guy on big board's the top 100 player. Maybe he gets picked 75, but like, that's at least something for us to work with. A lot of the offensive linemen that they've met with are guys that are going like way later on. And so they met with some guys at the combine. That's fine. I can't really go off that data and say like, this is exactly what they want to do. But where they've done a ton of their visits is the wide receiver position. It's the most in the league. Like, it's 8. So if you're doing that much homework on all of the top guys, it seems like at 6, that would be, it wouldn't shock me if this was like Maui Noah. Like that's in play here. Fano's in play. But would you bet Carnell Tate? We have him as the first wide receiver. That feels like a very good bet that we made, a while back. Would you bet plus 175 to go to the Browns?
I don't think I would. I hope listeners are with us on that price pick. I think we got minus 115 like a month and a half ago on Carnell Tate to be the first wide receiver. I'm probably just going to ride that out and hopefully cash that one. But I don't love that number because I could see them taking an offensive lineman. Totally.
All right, let's go to the Commanders at 7, and we mentioned them earlier as the top golf crew. So that throws my data set like off, where it's like, okay, well, everybody got to play golf together. Is that the same that I should treat as somebody else that came in for a private workout for a different team? Like, those feel very, very different. We know that they met with Arvell Reese, Jeremiah Love, Sonny Styles, Carnell Tate, Ruben Bain, Caleb Downs, Mansour Delane. That's the crew that they had in and said, and Mekhi Lemon and Jordan Tyson too came in. It's one of those guys. I'm telling you that right now. So do you have a lean?
I don't have a lean because I think their selection is just going to be based off whatever happens in front of them.
Do you think somebody ordered some food like, God, what an idiot?
Mekhi Lemon was just weird again or something. He's off the list now,
Just on his phone.
Oh, come on, Mekhi. The other thing about Washington that's interesting is they are also a team that has been kind of pegged by a lot of people as that they'll trade back because they don't have a second round pick. So essentially, do they try to move back and gain more capital, or do they just stick here and try to hit a home run? And I think if you're looking at this roster, I totally get the wide receiver appeal. I think that makes sense, but they need so much help defensively. And I think they'll take Sonny Styles if he's available. In your mock, you had, oh no, you didn't have Styles go yet. I didn't have Styles go either. And so I have the quote unquote slide stopping here with Washington. Like they need everything defensively, corner, linebacker, like they need that. And yes, I understand the wide receiver appeal. I think they could take Carnell Tate if he's here, but I think this team will likely go defense just given how many issues they had last year.
Yeah, this one was tough. So I went a little bit narrative street here, just to be honest. So I picked from that group of players that we talked about. I think Sonny Styles is in play. Think about how bad the defense was last year. I think it's going to be a defensive player. They've done a lot of homework at safety. If Caleb Downs is here, I think that they're interested. Done a lot of 4 visits in at the cornerback position. I have Mansur Delane, the cornerback out of LSU, so you can make the connection there, LSU, Jane Daniels. But what if I told you he is a Washington, D.C. boy? That's like where he was, where his family still is, bringing in that connection. Also, Dan Quinn is a sucker for big corners, like solid corners. So that's where I'm at.
I like this call from a value standpoint. The value, Kyle.
Oh, let me look up the markets, because the markets are, I mean, don't even get me wrong.
Moving the lines.
I haven't bet it yet, so I haven't moved the line.
Just an excuse to hit the drop. I think a lot of the mocks that you see, right, are maybe they take a wide receiver here. It's Sonny Styles, like me. I rarely see Mansur Delane's name associated with the Washington Commanders, but I think he's very live to go here. And you look at his odds for top 10, I mean, they're through the roof. So if it's not here and you think it might be somewhere like New Orleans or Kansas City or the Bengals, like that makes sense to me. But I think there's a mismatch in the possibility, like you said, connecting the dots that Delane could be here and could be the selection versus the odds. So I don't know what those odds are, Kyle, but if they're long shot enough for me that I might be interested in a sprinkle, I might do that.
Yeah, if there was a market for the Commanders to take a cornerback or safety, I feel like that's like the one that I like the most. It's plus 650 for Delane, plus 750 for Downs, who we know is part of the Top Golf crew as well. I think secondary is like what they need. They did address it a little bit. They got Amik Robertson in free agency. It's always hard for me to look at like what did they just do and then just X out that position and say they won't do it again. They won't add to it especially in the secondary. So that's where I'm at. Cornerback, safety there. The value play of the week brought to you by Wendy's is Mansur Delane. Hometown man.
You said it's plus 650?
Plus 650 on DraftKings.
So the other angle with Delane, I don't know what your comfortability here is, Kyle. Like sometimes in NFL draft betting, it doesn't feel good to lay like minus 200, minus 250, minus 300. But if this information-based market, sometimes there's still value even at these long odds. If you don't want to worry about any of that stuff, I know that was some steam on Jermon McCoy out of Tennessee. Then we have a lot of people like Schrager and others saying he ran the 40 fine, he tested fine, but his positional drills weren't great, which makes sense off an ACL. The change of direction type stuff isn't going to always be clean. And then you have several reporters basically saying like there are teams that won't have him on their board, or there's teams that will ding him like half of a round of value because of his knee issue. So all that to say is if you don't want to mess with any of this stuff and just take Delane to be the first corner, I'm really kicking myself. We could have taken it at like minus 115 like a month ago. We didn't. If you want to take it at minus 200 or minus 225, I still think that's fine personally.
Yeah, on DraftKings, I'm looking at it right now. It's minus 360. So if you can find some minus 250s out there, I'm sure there's some other books that you could find it. I'm down with that. I wanted to put him with the Saints. There's an LSU connection there too. They did their homework at that position. The Saints are next at 8th. Feel like they can go in a lot of different directions here. Ruben Bain is technically the betting favorite at plus 350, but which just means nobody knows what the Saints are going to do.
Correct.
They've met with a bunch of different players. Carnell Tate. They met with Mekhi Lemon. Delane they had in a local visit, a top 30 visit. Lots of different areas that you could go here. I would have, if I didn't have Delane here, I would have thought about him at 8. What do you got?
I threw a curveball here. I'm following the late rise of Jordan Tyson. I wish we were doing this show after his workout, which is later today if you're listening on Friday. He's going to do a workout for teams. I don't know if he's going to run a time for a 40 or anything, but like do positional drills and hopefully just show he's healthy. There have been multiple people in the reporting space coming out saying Jordan Tyson is likely rising in terms of being a wide receiver 2 on a lot of boards. It's going to be variable after that. Some people will have Omar Cooper next or then Mekhi Lemon or whatever, but there is some steam on Jordan Tyson here. And I think he's in play at 8 if things check out. People have made some parallels of like, Tyler Shuck coming out last year. He had some medical issues. They still took him. Jordan Tyson, sure, he's got medical issues. Maybe those are overblown. The Saints might take a risk here and pair him with Chris Olave, which I would love. So I do have him as the pick in this mock, and I know you have a wide receiver too, which is very fun. And I think there is potential value for these guys to be at this spot. So I like your call. I'm interested in my take. The question we don't know is like how they order these guys on their board, but I'll let you share yours. I have Jordan Tyson.
Yep. I have Mekhi Lemon, who they've met with. They've had a private workout. I mean, Tyson had a workout with them too. So it seems like they're doing their homework on selecting one of these guys. That's why I'd rather go this direction than Ruben Bain. I could be wrong. But we took Mekhi Lemon to go in the top 10. It actually has gone the opposite direction recently on some books. But I still feel strong that he's in play for a couple of these teams. Commanders, Saints, Chiefs. He's all in play. He's also in play for a team that wants to trade up if they want to. I think the Dolphins at 11 are also in play. But I just look at what this team has allocated for the wide receiver position. You don't spend this many 6 top 30 visits on legit wide receivers. It's not like they're just getting a bunch of round 6 and 7 guys. So if you can find a market that says them taking a wide receiver, a lot of these teams in the top 10, if you go searching for it, they won't show those teams because it's a limited pool of players. Where you get down a little bit later, some of these other teams, it's like, oh, well, the Bills could go in a bunch of different directions with their first pick. Or, there's just other teams like the Eagles. It's like, oh, well, they could do 3 or 4 different things. I feel pretty good about wide receiver to the Saints. I'm also a sucker for Kellen Moore and any player he puts in the slot because they become elite. CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, Devonta Smith. Last year, Juwan Johnson.
Dude, Juwanson. We had some moments with Juwan about 3,400 on DraftKings.
Oh,
he always came through for us.
Those were the days. That's what I'm going to have on my tombstone. Remember when I got 3,400? Remember when I used to get Kate Otten for 2,700?
What a time to be alive.
Yep. All right, Saints. Let's go to the Chiefs. Another wild card team because they have the picks to move up. They're also a team that doesn't mind being aggressive because they're so good. I also feel like there's this thing in the NFL. Maybe it's like this in your fantasy league where it's like, this team is always good. I don't want to trade with this team. I don't want to make them better. That's what I always do with Andy in all of our leagues. I never want to trade with Andy because I don't want him to get better. And so I end up just, Mike and I put our foot down and say, we're not trading with Andy.
That's fine. Stick it to Andy.
Stick it to Andy. Not Andy Reid, though. He knows what he's doing. Chiefs at 9. Ruben Bain is the favorite. I think you can go a bunch of different directions here.
Yeah, they're a tough team. I do have them taking Ruben Bain.
As do I.
The earlier sentiment was he'd probably be in the top 5 or 6 picks, and then lately there's some off the field stuff reportedly teams are aware of, but also there's the arm length discussion on him. And so most of the guys that I listen to and trust have said his range probably starts in the 7-ish spot and kind of goes all the way to like 12 or 13. So somewhere in this window is where I've got Ruben Bain coming off the board. Chiefs could take a corner. I think they could take Delaney if he falls. They obviously have met with a bunch of the wide receivers. I think that's in play, but I see them investing in the trenches here with Ruben Bain at 9.
Yeah. I mean, wide receiver is kind of what a lot of people are throwing out there. And it would be really cool to see Tyson or Lemon on this team. It's a fantasy question here. Do you think Rashee Rice is a Kansas City Chief in 2027?
I do not.
I don't either. So that affects some of that. At pick 10, we have the Bengals. The Bengals are funny because you have all these Ohio State players this year that are like in state, so the Browns or Bengals can call them a local visit. And some of these guys just didn't go to the Bengals.
What does that
I love
mean?
it. It's just, I don't know, but it's just funny when you see the reporting where it's like, well, you just assume you're going to go visit the in-state teams. Like if you're in Texas, you're going to visit the Cowboys, right? Like it's just
Right.
This is AT&T Stadium. You're going to go. Some of these guys are like, I'm not going to the
They're
Bengals.
like, nah, I'm good.
I don't really want that. Caleb Downs is the favorite in quotes at plus 285 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I don't think he lasts till there. I don't have him in the mock, but this is where you have him.
Yeah, I have him here. I almost feel like I had to have him here just because I didn't put him earlier. And like I said,
Gotta have it.
You gotta have it. The Schrager thing about, he's not going to be there at 12. So it's like, well, if I didn't put him earlier with the Giants or something, like this is kind of where the slide has to happen. I think they take a defensive player, just look at their defense last year. That's what everybody's mocking, whether it's Caleb Downs or Mansour Delane or Sonny Styles or whoever. Like they're likely taking defensive player here. And they'll have an opportunity to take a good player regardless of who it is. So I don't have a strong take personally. I went with kind of the favorite chalk here. I did give them Caleb Downs, and you went with Sonny Styles.
So we just have our Giants and Bengals picks swapped.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. And Styles met with the Bengals.
Oh, no. I gave the Giants Fano.
Oh, Fano. Oh, you gave Styles to the
Washington.
Commanders. So I know that Styles met with them. He did his local visit with the Bengals. So he was like, being a good boy saying, hey, I'm going to go see the local football team. Whenever they go visit the Falcons, I just like, man, I'm sure that they think this is just a crap fest. It's just, what is this? Why am I visiting this team? So just to recap, my top 10, and then you can do your top 10 before we go to the next part. I have Mendoza, Bailey, Reese, Love, Downs, Tate, Delane, Lemon, Big Ruben Bain, and Sonny Styles.
All right, we've got the same top four. So at the 5th pick, I have Spencer Fano, Cardinal Tate, then Sonny Styles, 7th. 8th, I have Jordan Tyson, Ruben Bain at 9 to the Chiefs, and Caleb Downs, 10th to the Bengals.
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll keep going.
You're juggling a lot, but you can still squeeze in a financial plan. With the Northwestern Mutual Financial Advisor as your partner, it's not only possible, it's personalized. So if you're tying the knot, closing on a house, or welcoming a little one, you'll be ready for whatever life tosses your way. It's the right time to feel less stressed and more certain. That's a better way to money. Let's get started at nm.com. The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
The Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University helps you go from, I know the way, to I've arrived with our top 10 ranked online MBA. Gain skills you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Get ready to go from make it happen to made it happen and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu/Jack Welch MBA to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
The Dolphins at 11. I have a friend, shout out to my friend Travis, who's a Dolphins fan. And when I checked in with him recently about it, he's just like, dude, I don't know what we're doing. He's like, most of my adulthood has been like, I don't know what the plan is and where we're going here. At least with Mike McDaniel, you could say, this is fun. Like this is a fun team you get to root for. A lot of question marks. The Dolphins at 11, they also pick again at pick 30. They have the Broncos pick. I have Jordan Tyson going here. Do you feel like this is one of those spots, if they don't take a wide receiver here, they're taking one at 30?
I think that's probably the case, or later. It's interesting with this front office, which I had to remind myself like last week or 2 weeks ago. This is basically the Packers, right? Like you think about new head coach and a coaching staff, and front office is a brand new GM, so this will be his first ever selection as a GM. But if you think about what the Packers have always prioritized, it's the athletic testing, high upside type guys. And for years, we were begging them to take a wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. They just said, no, we're never going to do it. We'll get him on day 2. And then they finally did it last year with Matthew Golden. And we know how that went, at least as of now. But all that to say is, I don't have them taking wide receiver because of that kind of Packers-y traits. Maybe that's just chasing something that's not real, but I haven't taken Mansour Delane. I think he goes in the top 10, but I didn't have a spot for him, so it was almost like he has to stop the slide here. If he would make it to the Cowboys at 12, I think they would sprint the card in for Mansour Delane. But I have the Dolphins taking him here. Highly, highly athletic testing in terms of his combine and everything. So this is a player that fits what historically the Packers front office has looked for, and obviously they need corner help. So I have him taking Delane.
Yep. I have Jordan Tyson here as the wide receiver they're going to take. Did you look at their depth chart and just say to yourself, man, maybe they already got some guys there. They got Tutu. They have Terrace Marshall Jr. Like they're already set.
They don't need wide receiver.
I'm sure they've had like a couple of like little like meetings, like, I don't know, Zoom calls from the wide receiver room. And they're like, God, boys, we got this. We got this room. And they're like, none of you guys are making the team.
I don't know if I ever remember seeing a wide receiver depth chart this bad entering the NFL draft. Like there's teams obviously that have like a guy and like nobody else. They don't have anybody. It is truly baffling.
It's bad. The Cowboys are at 12. There's a lot of talking about them moving up, and you mentioned that earlier. They have a pick later on too. I found this out. So the Cowboys currently have 10 top 30 visits confirmed for the cornerback position, okay? If you add safety in, it's like another 4 or 5. So they have almost 15. They almost have half of their visits to secondary guys. And I looked this up. Over the last decade, the only other team to have over 10 top 30 visits for the cornerback position is the Dallas Cowboys in 2017. So you mentioned Delane. If he's on the board, he'd be there. Jermon McCoy, you brought him up earlier, of Tennessee. Wild card, could slide in the draft. Jerry could also be like, he's really good. He's awesome. I don't care. He's recovered. So I think they're going to go cornerback or safety here.
Yeah, the interesting thing about McCoy is there's been some local reporters out of Dallas suggesting that he is not on their board. Who knows? Like that could be smoke or that could be real.
Right.
I did not have McCoy going here just in the thought process of like, hey, if this medical stuff is real, he might slide a little bit. And last year it seemed impossible. I forget his name, Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan.
That went to the Cardinals in the second round.
Right. It felt impossible for him not to be a first round pick. I don't think the slide will be that drastic.
McCoy did test at the combine, right?
Jermon McCoy, no, he did a private workout.
He
wasn't ready for the combine.
Okay, that's what it was.
And so he ran the 40 and tested very well. But that's what I was saying. His positional drills reportedly did not go great. He seemed like not totally back from the ACL, which is not necessarily shocking for the change of direction dynamic stuff. So a team will take him at some point, I think, in the teens. But that's what I was saying with the Delane bet. Like, I just feel so confident Delane is going to be the first guy taken at corner that because of the medical issues with his knee with Jermon McCoy, I think he slides further than this personally. And I'll bring up later an angle that I like at the cornerback market at a different selection. But for this one, you have McCoy. I have Dylan Denneman, the safety out of Oregon. Admittedly, I don't feel great about this one. It's more just they need defense. He tested out of this world. The NFL seems to love him, but at the same time, safeties generally tend to fall. So this will be a long shot one, but again, I wanted to put something different here just to get a little bit off the board.
So they pick at 12 and they pick at 20. When I was doing my full mock draft at 20, I did give them a safety. It was Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo. So I think we're in the same thought process that it's secondary. This is where they're going to go. Do they want to move up? Because, I mean, I'll give them some credit. They are throwing some haymakers. I mean, they met with Arvell Reese. They met with Sonny Styles. They met with Caleb Downs. They met with Delane. And it's possible if they can't move up, none of them are going to be there.
Right.
So the Rams are next. And I love, like, in doing all this research for the visits, I love that there are teams that sit there and go, wait, we don't have to do any of this stuff? Like, we don't have to throw out any of these puff pieces or, like, get our fans excited about here's where we're going to meet. We're not going to tell anyone what we're doing, and we can back it up because we're a good organization. So the Rams, veiled in secrecy. No idea.
Love it. I went with Mekhi Lemon here. That feels like a chalky square pick. But Schreger has connections to McVay and the Rams, and that's who he put. So I literally, totally disclosure, said that's what he did. I'm doing that too. And there's so much smoke around, like they were in on AJ Brown. They discussed the Devontae Adams trade. Puka whatever off the field stuff. Like, I think they could take a wide receiver. Mekhi Lemon is tough as nails. Like, that historically is kind of what McVay is looking for. So I think Mekhi Lemon is my selection here for the Rams.
There is a market, I'm looking at it right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, where you can figure out the Rams' position of their first drafted players. So I don't love taking a long shot because you said it could be Lemon, it could be Tyson, whoever. Wide receivers at minus 135, but next up is offensive linemen at plus 300. So in your draft so far, you just had Fano go 5th overall, and I just took him 13th overall. It seems to me like there's value on the board for the offensive line position. So that's actually how I would bet this if I were with the Rams. Just say, hey, best offensive lineman plus 300, see if it goes there with their first position.
I could see it.
Okay. Thought so. Thought it was well thought out, considering we don't know anything about this team.
Thought so.
Ravens at 14. Usually we don't get them on this episode. They don't usually pick here. A really hard team for me. I wanted to go in a couple different directions. It's a new coaching regime, so we have to kind of take what we think the Ravens have always done. Yes, it's a lot of the same GM stuff, but it's okay, this team is built around Jesse Minter, Declan Doyle, who is the new offensive coordinator, comes over from Chicago. I'm interested in what the Ravens are going to do, but I think we can go a bunch of different directions.
Oh, yours is fun. So I didn't have Maui Noah going earlier. I have the slide stopping here at 14. I don't know what it is about the Ravens, man. Every draft, they just get that guy that shouldn't be on the board that falls to them, and they're like, okay, best player available. Let's just take good football players. And that would fit here with Maui Noah. So in my exercise where I did a different thing in the top 10, I wanted to see what would happen, and then I had him falling here. So 14th, I have Maui Noah.
I have Kenyon Sadiq, which is definitely a fun pick. Tight end, right now it's offensive line, wide receiver, and then tight end at plus 350. I definitely would not bet that. But I think, a team that's traditionally been built with 2 tight end sets, it's also where Declan Doyle has just come from, which is 2 tight end sets with the Bears, Cole Kmet. They just took a highly drafted tight end. So he comes from that school of thought, or at least followed it with Ben Johnson. And then you look at the contract situation. I mean, Andrews could be gone in the near future, and he's getting older. They also lost Charlie Kohler and Isaiah Likely in the same offseason. So there is this rebuilding thing for a team that also lost Patrick Ricard. They lost Tyler Linderbaum. The identity of this team being this tough, heavy, 12 personnel team. Are they going to stay with that? Or are they going to go a different direction? I've seen wide receiver here, which would be very interesting if they took Tyson. I want the Ravens to take a wide receiver or tight end here for fantasy purposes. So there's a little bit of projecting in there. I do think offensive line, if there's value with Fano, Maui Noah,
got it.
Or Caden Proctor out of Alabama, all those guys are on the board here. But Sadiq would be a fun Raven.
It would be very, very fun. Yeah, I almost have to retrain my brain. This is not the Harbaugh team. I keep thinking of it as that, right? But they got the kids, Kyle, at at very important positions with head coach here, and Declan Doyle is very young. It's fun. It's going to be a brand new look Ravens team. I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
We have the Buccaneers at 15. A team, Jason Light, their general manager, has been pretty astute, I would say. Probably some of the better, savvier moves of the last 5 years of just looking at how you've constructed a roster, how they've held it together. They're also in a terrible division, so that's part of it. I went with cornerback here as kind of best cornerback available, or who on their board do they want to address. So I have Avion Terrell, which is AJ Terrell's brother, Falcons' great cornerback. But I don't feel great about it.
That would be a hot take because he's a guy that a lot of people have pegged to slide to the back of the first or even into the second. But the Bucs surprised us last year, and maybe they do that again. I have them taking. I'm gonna mess this up. Vega Ione. I should know this as a Penn State fan.
No, that's what me and my buds call him.
Oh yeah, obviously. But the massive interior offensive lineman out of Penn State. Very fun player, man. That coaching staff a couple years ago, full sicko mode. They would put him in the slot, and they would motion him down on a run play to like crack block a edge or a linebacker. Like, it was just brutal to see this 300+ pound man just destroying another human being. But they kind of quietly dealt with a huge number of offensive line injuries last year. I wonder if that plays into them. But like you said, they're a team that we're in the dark on because they don't really have a traditional visit and draft structure. So he's highly athletic. Jason Licht historically has drafted that. That's where I have him going.
Yeah, they're a tough team to figure out. So was Ione, that's what I'm going to call him, the offensive lineman, was he part of that Tyler Warren group where it's like they're pulling him, and then Tyler, I was just thinking like in my head of like this huge pulling guard and then a tight end running behind him.
Dude, the offense
play
2 years ago was so weird because they had I don't want to say weird, more fun is how I put it, with the Warren quarterback Wildcat stuff. There was also a couple plays where they would put Ione on the outside and throw him a screen pass.
Heck yeah.
And like, you look at, these like 200-pound corners trying to tackle this guy. It's like, good luck. So he's fun, highly athletic, reportedly a really good dude. I think he's going to go somewhere in this range. He's commonly mocked to the Ravens, which I could see. But like I said, I went a little different here.
In my full mock, I had him going a little bit late. I had him going to the Steelers at 21, but he's right around this spot.
For what it's worth, Daniel Jeremiah, who has connections with the Chargers, has said if he falls to the Chargers, like, they'll likely run the card in.
Well, he went the pick before in my obviously really, really good mock. So no chance. Let's finish out right here with the Jets at 16. We think that if they don't take a wide receiver at 2, we're going to take, Reese or Bailey, then we can get, we both went weird, and we both went weird in the same direction. I'm genuinely shocked here because I think the wide receiver left over, if it's not Tyson Lemon, is Omar Cooper Jr., who did meet with him, but I chose a different wide receiver met with him, and so did you.
Dude, I love this. This is fun. We both landed on big Denzel Boston as the pick at 16. It's weird. Like, there was that report from Tony Pauline. We talked about it last week. The Jets like Omar Cooper, but they don't like him enough to take him here. They'd only take him at 33. It's just weird. Like, if you like him, you take him. It's like quarterback. Like, we like him, but like, we don't like him that much.
We like him more like pick 20, not like pick 10.
Yeah, it's like if you like the guy, you're taking him. Reportedly, Omar Cooper Jr. is not making it to 33, so I could see him being the selection here. But I also thought it was interesting, like, there's a lot of buzz on Denzel Boston to go in the first round. Like, Schrager has mentioned we could see 6. He said we could see 6 before pick 25, which would be, like, totally rare, but just speaks to, like, if you see a run on wide receiver, it could happen. And I could see the Jets saying, we want to get ahead of it. Let's take our guy here. And they have met with Boston, reportedly went well. Like, I could see it. So I am with you. I have the wild card here of Denzel Boston 16th, which would be above consensus. I also wanted to point out that I think Chris Johnson, the cornerback, is in play for the Jets.
San Diego State Aztec?
That's
Chris
the
Johnson?
guy. That's the guy. He could be in play at 33 for them. Met with them, but I thought it was interesting this past week. Like, there was so much buzz on him to go in the first round. We ended up taking that as an official bet for him to be a first round pick. And I also wanted to point out for folks, if you can find like a super, super long shot wager on Chris Johnson to be the second cornerback taken, we gave that out as like an unofficial, hey, I'm putting $5 on this kind of thing. I got it at 30-1 on, I think it was Fanatics. The rationale here is basically the later you get in the NFL draft, you think about like the 20s, weird stuff can happen. Anything can happen. And if the McCoy knee injury is a factor for teams, and if he does happen to fall into this range, and all of a sudden Chris Johnson's a player that's in play somewhere in the mid-20s, at that point, these odds are so far off of the range of outcomes that could happen that I think playing him as the second corner is at least worth a sprinkle if you can get long odds.
Yeah, would you say 20-1?
Yeah, I would do that. $5.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's 10-1 right now in DK.
Oh,
so,
I got 30-1.
Oh, sorry, I got to hit the button.
Moving the lines.
Which, I have Jermon McCoy going, so this bet's a losing bet in my mock.
No, I think McCoy is the most likely. My point is just like, if the knee is an issue and McCoy slides to the mid to late 20s, then all bets are off.
Yeah. So that's going to do our top 16. We will get to post this. Betz will get to post a betting mock draft. I do want to give you a heads up before I hit this button and Betz signs us off. Next week, our episode will come out later on Friday. We usually end up recording the day before. Obviously, that would be stupid to do. We want to make sure we react to the first round of the NFL draft. We'll also talk more about day 2 and day 3. So next week's episode will come out a little bit later on Friday. So don't get mad at us. Who should they get mad
at? Jeremy and Josh.
Yep. Corporate, just stick it to them. Sign us off.
Dude, that episode next week's going to be fun because this is our last show before the NFL draft. So our mock today probably looks dumb in a week, and we'll get to talk about it next Friday. React to round 1. Always a good time. We'll catch you guys next week. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the NFL draft. We'll see you next Friday.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
You're juggling a lot, but you can still squeeze in a financial plan. With the Northwestern Mutual Financial Advisor as your partner, it's not only possible, it's personalized. So if you're tying the knot, closing on a house, or welcoming a little one, you'll be ready for whatever life tosses your way. It's the right time to feel less stressed and more certain. That's a better way to money. Let's get started at nm.com. The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
At Strayer University, we help students like you go from, is it possible, to anything is possible by offering access to up to 10 no-cost gen ed courses, so you can reach your goals affordably and fast. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. No-cost gen eds provided by Strayer University affiliate Sophia. Eligibility rules apply. Connect with us for details. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.